Hey y'all, Maria Com here again. I'm not really sure why, but I am incredibly tired today. Probably stress and or lots of social interaction the past couple days. And I am an introvert, so that kind of takes a toll on me. But yeah, so that's probably part of it. Um whew, yeah, who knows. I actually didn't stay up super late or anything, so wild. Anyway, so yesterday was my sister and brother-in-law's 10-year wedding anniversary party. Their anniversary was the day before, but when your anniversary is on the 1st, January 1st, which is a holiday, that gets, kind of tough for people to show up to stuff, for places to be open, that kind of thing. So they did it on the 2nd, which was also a Friday this year, so made it a little easier for people to show up. Um, had pretty good turnout, so that's good. My parents were there, and I am kind of amazed that they did not try to talk to me, did not try to interact with me. Hooray. It gives me a little bit of hope that maybe they will at some point understand what has happened and all of that stuff. I don't know. We'll see. I am going to try and work on writing a letter with just bullet points of what I believe has caused me to need to go no contact with them. This weekend I'm gonna try and work on that, but I don't know. We'll see. In assisting myself with that, I kind of thought maybe I should try and verbally talk a little bit about what has gone down in terms of that. So, hurrah. I thought about scripting it out, but I have found that when I just talk about it out loud, even just for a recording to share with all of you on YouTube, that helps me get more of it, I guess. Helps me remember more things, helps me come to more realizations than if I'm just writing it out. So, we'll see how it goes. Maybe this will be unusable. I have no idea. I'm gonna just see what happens and go with it. So, I have to preface this by giving a little bit of backstory about my family, I guess. My older brother, who is 8 years older than me, is really my half brother. He has a different biological father than I do. He was born, my mom was not married to the person that I don't know who his dad is. So, gonna just mention that. My mom and some of her siblings know who his dad is, but not all of them. And then my brother doesn't, unless it has changed now. I don't think my brother knows. That's a whole other story. But he didn't, by the time he turned 18, which is when my mom told him she would tell him if he wanted to know, he didn't want to know. Which is wild to me in terms of your health history. But whatever, that's his choice. He didn't want to know, so he doesn't know, I guess. Unless that has changed, but to my knowledge, he does not know who his dad is, and my mom is really the only one who knows for sure. So my brother is my half brother, and my mom raised him as a single mom for quite a while. Then she met my dad, and they dated for a while. They got married, and they had me. And then a year later, they had my sister. So I am a middle child. My mom consistently likes to say that I am not really a middle child. I'm just the second oldest child. Which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. She likes to say that because she likes to pretend that she doesn't treat all of us differently, and I think that's kind of silly, because I think every parent who has multiple children treats their children differently, because guess what? Your children are each individual different people. So, just seems silly to me to pretend you don't treat us differently. But anyway, I also, so this is my perception. Maybe I'm wrong, but she definitely treats my brother differently because he was her baby who was her only child for a while. And so he gets treated differently because of that. Even when he made mistakes that were kind of big growing up, it, you know, I'm not going to say they didn't, like, there were no consequences or anything, but if I had kids, I feel like the consequences would have been different. um, and he didn't, like, make really, really huge mistakes or anything like that. He's not, like, a criminal. He didn't do anything really terrible that hurt anybody or anything like that. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying stuff like, he's been divorced multiple times, twice from the same person. My parents are very conservative, so normally that would be like kind of frowned upon, but it doesn't really seem to be a problem to them. Whatever. Um so yeah, whatever. My sister is the baby of the family and kind of, got away with more things because she's the youngest. Again, I'm not saying that like she did anything really terrible or anything like that. It's just you can tell that there's a different reaction to things that happen when like she did something as opposed to when I did something. Um just as an example, when we were younger, my sister had a lot of like problems with regulating anger. So she was kind of violent sometimes. Now, when I'm saying violent, I don't mean like she didn't ever do anything very damaging to another person, as far as I know. um, I mean, we were sisters who were pretty close in age, so we fought, and I was usually more like verbally abusive as a child, and I will say abusive. I called my sister names a lot, um, and stuff like that. And she was more like physically abusive when we were children. Like she would throw things at me or hit me or scratch me or whatever. Uh, and that's fine. It's whatever. There were not usually, as far as I can recall, a lot of consequences for either of us with that sort of thing. I do remember getting like, what's the word? Like lectures about why I should not say mean things. I don't remember my sister getting as many lectures about not throwing things at me, but it could have happened and I just don't remember, and because it didn't happen to me. That's very possible. I don't recall that. I'm just thinking of things like, as an example, there was a time when she threw a toy horse at me and almost broke my nose. But, like, I don't recall her getting in a lot of trouble for that. But maybe she did. I don't know. Who knows? It's whatever. But anyway, so you could say I have, like, or maybe suffer a little bit from middle child syndrome, where it kind of feels like my older sibling could get away with a lot of things because they were the first, and my younger sibling could get away with a lot of things because they were the baby. Whatever. I remember lots of lectures about like you should know better, you're older, and stuff like that. Um, I can say that it did like I tried to avoid doing a lot of the things my brother did that were not the smartest choices, and I tried always to try and be a good example to my younger sister, except when we were fighting, of course. But and I think that kind of instilled in me like this idea that I have to always do the right thing, and I have to make the right choices all the time because I have no excuse not to, because I have an example above me of some, not great choices, and I have it to be an example to my younger sibling and all of that. So, I don't know. Um, I feel like as I was growing up, my opinions were not valued very much, especially compared to, I mean, I can remember times where we would be like at the store or something, and I would say, "Oh, this is really cool. I think we should get that." And my parents would say no. And then my sister would say, oh, this is very cool, we should get that, about the same thing. And my parents would say, oh, yeah, okay. So, whether that's just a perception or whether that's what actually happened, who knows? But that's how I perceived it. So, kind of seems like my opinion was not valued a lot. As another example that has nothing to do with my other siblings, even, I was a very good student in elementary school. This feels conceited, but it's not. I was far above my classmates in terms of learning ability and all of that. One example that to I guess as evidence of that is when I was in kindergarten, my teacher asked me to read a book to the first graders because I was ahead of the first graders in reading level. So, that's just an example. I got straight A's pretty much all throughout school. There was a time in 4th grade when, on a test, everyone else in the class got a question wrong that I got right. Because I paid attention and could use critical thinking and could read. That's mean. I'm sorry. It was not that hard of a question. Everyone else got it wrong because they misunderstood it and didn't read it correctly. I got it right. Didn't matter. The teacher was annoying and decided that the question must have been worded poorly since everyone else got it wrong, so she gave them all the points and took my points away, which was stupid and whatever. Who cares? That's not a point to actually make. It's just something silly. But yeah, so my point of all that is to say that I was, ahead of the rest of my class in school. And I went to a private school, so theoretically we were getting a quote-unquote better education. I don't know if that's true. Whatever. I only have my own experience in that relation to that. So I can't really say what education in public schools in my town was like because I only know what the private school is like. So whatever. But anyway, because I was so far ahead of the rest of my class, I wanted to move up. Even just moving up 1 grade, I think would have benefited me a lot. My parents said no. They didn't care that that's what I wanted to do. They didn't care that that probably would have been good for me academically. They didn't want to move me up because they thought it would hurt me socially. Well, as I've mentioned in some other recordings, I was bullied by a popular kid, which led to, also bullying from other people or just not being friends with pretty much anyone in my class. So I was already hurt socially, so that was a dumb reason. But whatever. I get that when you're a parent, you are just doing whatever you think is best, I suppose. The point of this, though, is that, again, my opinion and my assessment of what would have been best for me didn't matter to them. So, I don't know. I'm not sure if you can call that, emotional abuse. I think it might fit into the definition, but who knows. The point being, my opinions and my assessments of what would be good for me did not matter to my parents. Or didn't seem to. Because they never seemed to take anything I said into account. Now, that's not to say that they didn't do things that were helpful to me. For example, they helped me, they got me into violin lessons when that is something I wanted to do, and stuff. However, they didn't make me keep going, and they should have. I really wish they had, because, I don't know. I just really wish they had. I think I would maybe be doing something in life that I enjoy more right now if they had made me keep going. And that's the crazy thing to me, is that they didn't care. They didn't seem to care about what I wanted in terms of like academic advancement and stuff, or they never like cared about my opinion about, hey, let's get this thing at the store or whatever. But they let me do things that actually damaged me, like not continuing violin lessons. I mean, was it damaging? Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but whatever. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So went through school, whatever. I went to. Here's another nice thing they did for me. When I started middle school, that's when there like became slightly more options. I could either continue going to the private school or I could go to the public middle school, which was half a block from our house. They let me go to the public school for a year. And like I think that was good for me because I was exposed to more people of different backgrounds, different lifestyles, whatever. And I think that was advantageous to me. I was also exposed to a different like teaching and stuff like that, and I think that was good for me as well. So hurrah. I had a bad first day of school, my second year of middle school, and my parents decided to send me back to the private school on the second day of school. Because I had a bad first day of school, whatever. Which at that point, everyone at the private school, like no one at the private school liked me. Not that they ever did before, but they really didn't like me anymore at that point. And then I couldn't really see my friends from the public school anymore. So, I mean, that just hurt me more socially. So good on you guys, I guess, whatever. But that was only for a year, and then for high school, there was only a public school. There is no private high school in my hometown, so that was good at least. Then I could, see my friends again and stuff, and well, it was whatever. In high school, there were some opportunities again where, like, I just couldn't do them. For example, I really wanted to take AP classes so that I could get college credit for things in advance, and we couldn't afford the tests. So, like, I did take an AP class. I took an AP English class, but we couldn't afford the AP test that would give me college credit. So, it was kind of pointless to take the class. I mean, I learned stuff, so that's good, but that was an opportunity that I, was not allowed. There were a couple of other things too. I don't know who nominated me for this, but when I was in elementary school, someone nominated me to be Miss Preteen of the state I live in. And my parents wouldn't let me participate. And I don't know why, because they never told me why. I think a big part of my problem with my parents is actually never being told why. A lot of things. Like, they would make a decision but not explain the decision, and I would just have to deal with it. So, I just feel like there were a lot of opportunities that I had growing up that I was not allowed to participate in. And that just kind of sucks. There were some opportunities that I was allowed to participate in. Don't get me wrong. Again, I was able to learn how to play violin. I learned how to play some other instruments. It's a whole thing. It was great. Whatever. But that was all like school related most of the time. The violin thing was separate from school, but all of the other opportunities were like school related things. Where it was like, this is just like, you have this opportunity because you are a part of band. You have this opportunity because you are, in this class, whatever. So I'm trying to be fair here and not not just say, oh, I never had any opportunities at all. I had some. They just usually were not like the meaningful opportunities that would help me actually advance in life. Now, do I necessarily think that being Miss Preteen of my state would have helped me a lot? No, but I think it would have given me a lot of experience in things that I do not currently have a lot of experience in, like being in front of a crowd of people and presenting things and, talking about myself and talking myself up to people and things like that. Those are a lot of skills I do not have, and I kind of wish I did. And I think getting them at a young age would have been helpful. But anyway, so all of that, went through high school, ta-da. When I was in high school, I was not really planning on going to college. I didn't really want to. I would have been content just, staying in my hometown. I had a job at a grocery store in my hometown, and I was, moving up in the grocery store. And I would have been okay with just doing that for the rest of my life. Granted, I wouldn't have been able to stay at that grocery store because it no longer exists, but, if I had moved up, I could have gotten a job at somewhere else in management or whatever, just as an example. So I was just fine with that. However, now again, this is my perception. I have since been told this isn't how it happened, but this is what I remember, so whatever. When I was in my last couple of years of high school, my parents told me that if I do not go to college, they will kick me out once I turn 18, and that is that. And I'll have to figure out life on my own at that point. Had they prepared me for life on my own? No. I didn't have any experience. I had a job, but I didn't have any real experience with, budgeting or figuring out how to pay bills or anything like that. I didn't know how to get an apartment, anything like that. So they basically, in my opinion, forced me to go to college. Again, wasn't really planning on it. I knew college was expensive, and we didn't have the money for that, so I knew I would be taking out loans that I will have to pay back for the rest of my life. And guess what? I was right. So I went to college. I did my first 2 years of college at a private school. Why did I do that? I don't know. It was more expensive. That's kind of stupid. They also said I had to live in the dorm, which again makes it more expensive, even though I lived close enough that I theoretically could have lived at home. But yeah, so went to school, was working part-time. After a couple of years, I transferred to a university in a different town, which is the town I currently live in. Basically decided, I kept changing my major because I didn't know what I wanted to do, because crazy, I didn't ever want to go to college. So, here's the thing, I am smart, and that's great and all, but if I could just learn for the rest of my life and be a scholar, that would be great. I would love that. Unfortunately, I have now made decisions, I have since made decisions that make that not really possible, so. And I know that's not, practical in the society we live in, so. I didn't want to go to school. I could have learned just fine on my own outside of school. But, whatever. Anyway, so I kept changing my major, and eventually settled on, I'll just get an English major, because, as I kept being told, it's very marketable, because the humanities are very marketable, because they make you well-rounded as a person. That was a stupid thing to listen to, because we live in a society that thinks the humanities are stupid and pointless. Even though they're not. Our society is dumb for thinking that, but whatever. But anyway, my parents, didn't give me any advice about college. They didn't give me any help trying to figure out what to do with my life. They didn't tell me what they thought I should do with my life. They just said, you have to go to college or we'll kick you out. So, whatever. Felt like I was kind of forced into something I was not really wanting to do. Was I good at college? Yes. I'm a good student. I was good at it. I got straight A's for the most part. I think I probably got a couple of B's here and there because college is harder. Yeah. And then in my senior year of college, of undergrad, my advisor for my like final senior project basically said, well, since this is something you're interested in, you should go to grad school and you should go to this school that has this as a focus. And I did, and that was great. Now, when I graduated from high school, we had like a party at home and whatever, and that's great. I don't really remember if my parents were at my college graduation. They probably were. I just don't really remember it. It was like less of a big deal, which is crazy because it's a bigger accomplishment than graduating from high school. But yeah, so I feel like the older I got, like I never really felt like I was a huge priority in my parents' lives. This could be for a lot of reasons. Both of my parents suffer from depression, so, you know, that could be part of it. Depression kind of tends to make people very, like, inward focused and focused on themselves, which is not a bad thing, necessarily. However, like, it just kind of felt like we were not as important. And I feel like when we were growing up, my parents spent a lot of time going to my brother's swim meets, for example, and then my sister's swim meets when she was in swimming for a while, my sister's volleyball games. They went to, like, my basketball games and stuff like that in elementary school, but the older we got, it just kind of felt like my siblings had more stuff, and my parents were always going to that stuff. And, like, sure, when I had, like, band recitals or whatever, they would go to that, but it just felt like there was less of that. So it felt like I was less of a focus and less of a priority. Which is whatever. I mean, it's just something that kind of adds to, I guess, what is happening here. This is getting really long, and I apologize for that. And then once I was in college, definitely felt like I was not a priority at all. My brother, like, got married, well, had a kid first and then got married, and I felt like that became a lot more of a priority, even though my parents did not go to visit them a lot. Like, there was talk about my nephew and my brother and his family a lot, and whatever. When I went to grad school, my dad never visited me at grad school. My mom visited me twice. My mom and my sister came the summer between my 2 years of grad school, and we did, like, a trip somewhere. And then my mom came to my grad school graduation, but my dad was not there. So at that point, I was like, I am seriously not a priority in my dad's life. So, whatever. My parents also felt like woke was not a term at the time, but they clearly felt like I became too woke through college and grad school. So, that's fun. Really, I just, was learning more things about the rest of the world and other kinds of people and stuff, and that doesn't make you woke. That just makes you, I mean, it kind of does, but that's not a negative thing. It means you have learned things about life and about other kinds of people and stuff. And, yeah, gives you, whatever. Anyway, then I moved back to the town I went to college in, and was gonna do more grad school, but stuff happened that my parents were not supportive around any of what happened. I got dumped, and manipulative stuff happened to cause that, and my parents were not supportive at all, or didn't really seem to care. As I have lived in this town now, whenever my parents come to town, they stay with my sister. Even when we were both in apartments, they would always stay with my sister or stay at a hotel or something. And I would always have to go over to my sister's to be around them and be with them. Once my sister bought a house, that's what happened. They would always stay with my sister, and I would always have to go over to my sister's place in order to interact with the family. Virtually no time was ever spent at my apartment. Now that I have bought a house, my house is very small. Virtually no time has been spent at my house. And I mean, in the past year, obviously no time has been spent at my house by my family, but it's whatever. The point, though, is that promises were always made that we're gonna split time evenly, and then that would never happen. And while logistically, yes, it makes more sense to, like, have them stay somewhere where there is enough room for that, because my sister and brother-in-law have, like, multiple bedrooms and stuff. And logistically, yes, that makes sense. However, I am always having to, like, travel then, even if it's just a few blocks, to get to my sister's house to be with people, and then spend all day away from my own space and be with them. When I had a cat, that would mean my cat was neglected by the rest of my family, in terms of, like, all my sister's cats would get attention from extended family, like my parents and my brother and his kids or whatever, and my grandparents when they were still around, but like that my cat never got that kind of attention. Most of the time, my parents would, like, stop by on our way out of town or whatever, and that's, like, nothing. I'm sorry. That means nothing. That's just like, okay, we're stopping by to say hi and then we're leaving. Oh, just, if they cannot understand why that is not equal and not the same at all, there's nothing I can do about that. So, I mean, again, I don't know if I would call that, like, emotional abuse or whatever, abuse of any kind. It's just, it's definitely inequality and it's not fair. So, just gonna put that out there. Especially throughout my adult life, I have felt like I am not a priority because I don't have kids, and I don't have a significant other, and I don't have the resources to get this kind of stuff on my own. Get a bigger house that my parents can stay at. Whatever. My father is also a misogynist and a racist. He has said a lot of racist stuff all throughout my life. And he will justify it by saying things like, oh, well, I have this black friend, so this black person is in this volunteer organization I'm part of, so that means I'm not a racist. It's like, no, you can definitely still be a racist. If you're saying incredibly derogatory things about Native Americans or indigenous folks every time you talk about them, then you're kind of a racist. If you're saying terrible things about people of color constantly, then you're a racist. If you're bad-mouthing someone who is black, about a bunch of things that lots of other white people do, and only getting mad about it when a black person is doing it, sorry, that's racist. Sorry, it just is. My mom also is, like, not as maliciously racist, but she says a lot of insensitive things about racial minorities, and it's very frustrating. And the problem that I have with that is that she doesn't change. She doesn't make an effort to stop doing it. And I guess you could say that's a generational thing, but I don't think that's a good excuse, because there are other people in their generation who are not like that. So, that's not a good excuse. They're also homophobic and transphobic, both of them are. And I am non-binary and asexual. And, yeah. When I came out to them, so I did not have a lot of like literacy about what exists in terms of LGBTQIA when I was younger because I was raised in a very conservative household and I knew gay and straight and that was it. So I came out to them as gay in high school. And when I came out to them, it wasn't the worst possible reaction, but it also was not a good reaction. My mom just cried the whole time. And cried basically as though had told her the worst possible news ever. And my dad said he wondered what he did wrong. So, that's a great reaction. Yeah. So that's fun. My dad is a misogynist. Now, why do I say that? Okay, he always, you know, wants to talk to my brother, even though my brother is not his biological child. He really loves talking to my brother. Barely talks to me or my sister. And when he does, it's just to tell the same stories over and over, and he has always been like this. He just tells the same stories over and over and never, like, really deviates from them, and it just gets kind of boring and repetitive and annoying. Whatever, that's fine, you're an old man, it's whatever. And once my sister got married, he likes to spend a lot of time around my brother-in-law. Again, that's not necessarily a problem, but it is a problem when you want to do things with with my brother-in-law, like home improvement projects, and work with him and teach him how to do things. But the minute I want to do something in my house, you do them for me and will not let me help when I ask to help so I can learn how to do things in my own house. Both of my parents also tend to infantilize me by if I do ask for help or advice about something, they will continue to tell me things that I have already told them are not helpful, or things that I have already told them I do not want to do, or will not do, or cannot do, or whatever. I mentioned at one point that I would like to get rid of the carpet in my house and like change things out or whatever. And my mother this is something I want to do in the future when I can afford it, because I can't afford to buy flooring right now. And my mother continually sent me listings on like Facebook Marketplace or random places like that for flooring that is cheap. And I'm just like, that's great, but I can't afford it and I don't have the time for it right now. And I just, please stop. And then she would keep doing it. That is another big problem, is not stopping when I tell them to stop doing stuff. What else? Oh, I don't, it's hard to explain some of the misogynistic stuff because it's been like, the misogynistic stuff from my dad, because it's been a lot of like microaggressions throughout the years that I don't even remember. But the big one, the one that broke that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was during an argument, him telling me that a woman who had risen to a position of authority had only gotten there by sucking cock. And that was just like the point where I was like, wow, you really are just never gonna change. And how, like, you're saying this to your single female presenting child who has accomplished, like, I'm the only person in my family with an advanced degree, with a graduate degree, in my immediate family anyway. And, like, am I supposed to think that he thinks I only got that by sucking cock? Maybe he does think that. I don't know. He, again, was never involved or never cared about anything that was going on when I was in grad school. He did not interact with me pretty much at all. He didn't ever come to see me. He didn't come to my graduation. So maybe he does think that. I don't know. How am I supposed to think he thinks anything else? If he will say that about a woman in a position of authority that he doesn't personally know, how am I supposed to, like, what else am I supposed to think? So, I mean, definitely a massive misogynist there. And he never has any. There are, I mean, other microaggressions I can think of are like in this volunteer organization he is part of. He continuously badmouths every woman who has risen to a high position in that organization. There's just something about them he doesn't like. Okay, well, that makes you a misogynist because you're not saying that about any of the men in those same positions who are doing the same shit. Come on now. Yeah. And then, so for the past, like, I don't know, I want to say 5 years, any conversation, 5 or 6 years, I guess, any conversation we would ever have as me and talking with one or both of my parents, and I shouldn't generalize, I shouldn't say every single conversation. Most conversations we would have would end with them screaming at me because of opinions I hold, or because of, a lot of it would be telling them factual things that they don't like to hear. And them just screaming at me and telling me I'm a terrible person, and I don't know anything because I'm younger than them, and how dare I, like, claim something about the world when I haven't experienced it, and etc., etc. A lot of conversations would end with my mother accusing me of just wanting to argue, when most of the time I'm just trying to understand their viewpoints on things and ask for clarification. They take me asking them for clarification as me accusing them of something. I don't really know. I don't really understand why they get so mad. When I ask them to explain something to me, like, okay, well, why do you believe that? Why do you think that? Why do you support that? Like, they somehow, for some reason, seem to think that's me, like, accusing them of something when I'm just trying to understand. I would like to understand why this is something you support. And, that, or they will just say something bigoted back to me, and then I will tell them it's bigoted, and then they will get mad at me. For example, they are transphobic. They, make the same silly claims about, like, men in women's sports and how that's taking away women's rights, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, they support the administration and the party that got rid of Roe v. Wade. But, in their mind, that's good because they don't like abortion either. So, even though neither of them is ever going to get an abortion, I don't know why they think no one else should be able to. It's just, one of those things. But yeah, there are just too many things, and they are just, like, too bigoted, too terrible. And I would say, like, I am gonna say that the past, like, 5 or 6 years of conversations with them have been verbally abusive and emotionally abusive of them. There has been a lot of gaslighting that's gone on, where I will talk about something that bothered me a lot growing up, or something that bothers me now, and they will just say, well, that's not what really happened, and then not explain and not say what they think really happened. Just tell me that I'm wrong and crazy. And, like, not acknowledging that human memory is flawed, and just because I remember it differently from them doesn't mean that what I'm remembering is incorrect. or necessarily what they are remembering is correct. So, I can acknowledge that what I remember may not be 100% factual, but, it's how I remember it, and telling me that's not how it happened and then not explaining what did happen is not helpful. Um, and yeah, so there's been a lot of gaslighting that has gone on. I mean, I will acknowledge that there are things I don't even remember. I was having a conversation with my sister yesterday at her party, and she said something to the effect of, she said something like, I always wanted to be like you when we were growing up. And I literally had no idea. And I'm like 36. So I was like, really? I didn't know you wanted to be like me. I it's just kind of wild to hear, because when we were little growing up, we were around each other all the time because we were like around the same age, and there weren't a lot of kids around our age in our neighborhood, so we played a lot together and stuff. But I never knew that she wanted to be like me. I don't think she has ever said that to me before yesterday, so it's just kind of wild. But also, that is an example of how I have no memory of that, and I have no memories of her the way we were as kids that would tell me that. So I didn't know that. And I can acknowledge that I had no idea, and that might have colored how I treated her or how we acted together if I had known that. I can acknowledge that that is something I don't remember and I don't know. It's wild to me when people are like, no, I 100% remember. I'm older than you, so I obviously know more. No. On paper, I actually know more because, I mean, not about everything, but I have a higher degree than anyone else in my family, so on paper, I know more. Not about everything. My parents, my mom for sure, had the same career her whole life, so she's an expert in that, and I'm never ever gonna pretend I know more about that. There were a number of times I would ask her something in her field, though, and she would say she didn't know. Which is good, but also, you are acknowledging that you don't know everything, so to then turn around and tell me I can't possibly know more than you about something because I'm younger is just kind of stupid. It's just the dumbest argument ever. And I will say my dad has lived more places than I have. But that doesn't mean he knows more about the world just because he has lived more places than I have. If he always surrounded himself with the same kinds of people in those places, meaning mostly straight white men, then you don't know more than me, because I have surrounded myself with more varying kinds of people in the places I have lived. I, took classes about, and from foreign people in grad school and in college. I was around, when I was in grad school, I was teaching a lot of students from other countries, for example, and interacting with them and learning more about their cultures and learning more about where they're from and things like that. It's just wild to me to be like, well, I've lived longer, so I know more and I have more experience. Yeah, you theoretically have more experience, but that doesn't mean your experience is more varied than mine is. Maybe I've had more different kinds of experiences than you have. And maybe I've researched more things than you have. I actually have been trained in research, unlike my parents, who have not been trained in research. I have been trained in writing research, and my parents have not. So I would argue that I'm better at learning things and understanding things as well, and, critical thinking. It's just a whole thing. But anyway, this probably doesn't sound that bad. There have been people who have gone through a lot worse. I am just to the point where I'm like, I don't enjoy being verbally abused every time I talk to people. I don't enjoy being gaslit every time I talk to people. I don't enjoy being told I'm crazy or wrong or like don't understand the world every time I talk to people. I don't appreciate like it is a real sticking point to me lately that so many of the things I like asked for help with my house when I was in contact with my parents ended up with my dad just doing it and not letting me help when I was there asking to help and asking to learn. And guess what? Sometimes it didn't work out super great. Like, he helped me put cabinets up on my wall, but he didn't use anchors for the screws. And my walls are plaster. So that didn't work. And one of the cabinets fell off of the wall and hit me in the head and gave me a concussion. I have now put anchors in the walls for the screws, but I'm just like, literally a new homeowner. How would I know that? I've never put up cabinets before, but he should have known that. And there's a little tiny part of me that's like, okay, why did he not do that? Was it to cause me harm? Probably not. But also, how can I don't know. Like, how would I not think that? How would I assume he knew better? I don't know. Anyway, there have just been so many things where I've asked for help doing something, and instead he just did it. And I don't know. It's just kind of frustrating. And it feels like every time he has just done it, it has not turned out perfectly. And yeah. So, I mean, I'm just kind of to the point of, you won't even let me help in my own house. Another example would be my parents, when the couple of times they did come to my house, getting mad at me for swearing. And they got mad at me for swearing when I was younger and didn't have a house. And they would always say things like, well, when you have your own house, you can make your own rules, and that's fine. But in our house, you can't swear. Okay, whatever. Well, then when I got an apartment, they would get mad at me for swearing in my own apartment. And I would be like, I'm in my apartment. What are you gonna do about it? And now that I have a house, they would still get mad at me for swearing, and I'm just like, fuck you, it's my house. And I just don't understand that. I get that you don't like swearing, but that just means you don't have to swear. Guess what? I am an adult human being, and I can do whatever the hell I want. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, this isn't like the worst possible stuff that has ever happened. And talking about it just makes me feel silly. But I know that feeling silly is what people who are abusive, even in like the smallest of ways, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that it is silly of you to be frustrated by it and hurt by it. And it's just frustrating. Just so much of it has felt like I should be able to have my own life, and I should be able to be my own person. And it sucks for them if I'm not what they wanted me to be, but they also didn't help me be whatever they wanted me to be. Because literally any time I asked them, what should I do with my life? You want me to go to college, what should I do? They wouldn't tell me. Oh, do whatever you want. Do what makes you happy. Do what blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's not helpful. You can't then be mad about how I turned out. Because you didn't tell me what you wanted me to be. But yeah, I don't know. I am quite certain there are like buried traumas and stuff, but it's all like none of I do not think my parents ever like physically abused me, and I just don't remember it or anything like that. Um yeah. I think that there's a lot of emotional abuse and a lot of verbal abuse and psychological abuse, but using the word abuse is very hard for me because I know there are other people out there who have had it, all of those things on a much worse level than me. So it is just hard for me to use that word, even if it fits, even if it's correct. Um, and I found this quote on a video, in a comment on a video about children going no contact with their parents. And this is basically how I feel about it. As hard as it has been to like be no contact in terms of like feeling bad about it, because family has always been really important in my life. Family was like the end all be all when I was growing up, and that kind of died away as we as my extended family got older and a lot of people moved away and stuff. So like I don't know, I guess I like started learning that maybe family is not the end all be all, but it still has been very important to me pretty much my whole life. And it's hard and frustrating um to not speak to my parents and not be able to be involved in things because they're there and I don't want to interact with them. I don't know how to interact with them anymore. Um, like, especially realizing that most conversations for the past several years have ended in arguments or ended in them yelling at me or ended in whatever. All those kinds of things. I've just kind of realized that, like, maybe we don't have anything to talk about and maybe that's just okay. Maybe we do not need to interact and maybe that's just okay. So, I don't know. I like that's kind of where I have gotten to, and sorry, just getting back to this quote I found. And it's kind of how I am trying to look at it more and more because as I have said in the past, I do struggle with like caring about what other people think about me even when I'm not around, and I should stop that. At least I should stop that in certain cases, and this is one of those cases because they're going to think what they're going to think. So the quote that I found that kind of relates to that is, and I don't know who originally said it, so don't ask me that, but the quote that I found is, "The peace I feel without your presence in my life is worth being the villain of your story." And that is kind of how I feel. Like, maybe my parents are mad at me for not talking to them. Maybe it makes them feel bad that I'm not talking to them. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they think I'm a big baby and a selfish jerk for not wanting to talk to them and wanting to be no contact. Maybe their reaction to me pretty much completely ignoring them at my sister and brother-in-law's party, maybe their reaction to that is that I am an asshole. But you know what? Over the past year, and like 2025 was a crazy year with a lot of negative stuff happening. But over that year, not having to interact with them and be verbally and emotionally abused by them was so nice. So I think that's just where I'm at. Like, I still have stuff to work through in terms of why I feel the way I do about them and why I don't want to interact with them. I still have a lot of stuff to work through about that. I know that I do. Um, and I don't know. what, if anything, would ever, like, fix our relationship, would ever make me want to be in contact with them again. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just struggling with that. I have no idea what would. And basically, in the past, I've just said, they'd have to apologize. But I don't know what all they would have to apologize for at this point, because, as I said, I know there are things I haven't really worked through yet. So, I don't know. And I just don't respect them anymore, and I don't know that, the more I have realized they are kind of terrible people, the less I respect them, and the more I realize I don't really want to interact with people that I don't respect. If I don't have to. So, I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm at. And this is an insanely long recording, and no one is going to listen to all of this. So I don't know. I am making a New Year's resolution to, at some point, try and do actual videos. And by that I mean a recording of my face as I talk. It's not going to happen today, but I am making it a New Year's resolution to start doing that, just in case it would help people care more and be more engaged and, I don't know, want to listen. I don't know why it would, but maybe. So that is a New Year's resolution and something I am going to work on. And yeah, if you listened to this monster of a recording, thanks. I might also ask what's wrong with you, because this has just been long and rambly and stuff. And yeah, I appreciate it though. If you have listened to any of this, I do appreciate that. Let me know in the comments if there is something specific you'd like me to talk about in the future. This has been Myria Com, and I will chat at you again soon. Bye.